Hey team, this is episode number 6 in Captain and the Coach. Of course, we've got Trav, the captain Carruthers with us, and myself, James McCracken, the coach. And today we're going to be talking about hiring your first or next offshore team member. So, Trav, you have some offshore team members. Do you want to let us in on how many you currently have?
So we're currently at 5, but we've got one starting on Monday, which will be 6, and then another one starting the week after. So end of the month, we'll be sitting at 7 offshore team members.
Okay, great. So what we'll do, if it's all right, is we'll just break this down a little bit. I think this will be interesting for people to hear. Is we'll go at the start. How many did you hire? When did you hire? How did you feel about that? We'll just go through a couple of those earlier and simpler decisions, and then we'll get some context around how that team has continued to grow over a period of time. So let's start with this, which is at what point did you feel you needed or you were absolutely categoric in having a team member, and why did you choose offshore versus onshore?
I'm not going to say strategic. I was probably pushed into the decision, to be completely honest. I had an onshore support person who was on a contractor model. We'd made the decision to move into tech. This person was older, didn't see value in it, didn't really buy into what we were looking to do, and said, Trav, this whole broker engine tech thing you're getting excited about, there's no future in this. It's a waste of time. And I said, well, look, if that's the case, I'm sorry, we're heading in this direction. Like I need to explore other options. So we didn't fire him, but we just agreed that it wasn't a fit. And
And so
I
there's
agree.
a mutual decision that essentially the trajectory of the business wasn't necessarily aligned with his beliefs or
Yeah.
values or skill sets potentially.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, I obviously by that stage I was maybe 6 months into my journey with Brokerage, and everyone was talking about Brokerage and built for offshore. Like it was built with offshore in mind to help facilitate it and get the most out of your offshore team. So I'm like, well, if I'm committed to taking this direction for the business, I probably should look. So we went to a BPO. We had a lot of success with them. Their onboarding was really good. Their support was really good. Yeah, for those that are looking to hire their first staff member and want to go through one of those offshore labor hire, they're great. I think they're great, and there's a place in the market for them. We don't currently use them. We now hire directly,
Yep,
but we have the infrastructure in place now.
sure. And so when you started, did you start with one team member or did you hire multiple at the beginning?
Started with one. He lasted about 12 months, I think. COVID hit. He started working from home, started noticing his work was slipping a little bit. It's pretty evident because you need to trust these guys, right? And I mean, obviously there's time doctor and there's a whole heap of, but there are ways around these sorts of things. It was pretty evident that I can't say this categorically, but I feel that he was probably working two jobs, probably getting paid by me and getting paid by somebody else. And
Yep.
it became pretty clear. So we had a conversation and we terminated him. And then we got a new one. We got the number one recruit for the next coming through. So they showed me the three recruits and said this particular guy is a number one.
Number
He
one based on what?
Based on all the testing and the training they've done. They do testing, then they do 2 weeks, a couple of weeks worth of training with him, and they said, "Well, whoop, Trav, we
So
understand."
he rated the best out of those candidates.
Yeah,
Right.
but the funny thing is, on paper, he was the worst. On paper, you look at him, and so I'm looking at these other university graduates' experiences. He had no experience. He was an he was a baggage handler prior to joining, right? Like he's probably someone I never would have looked at, but they said, no, this is your guy. And I was like, okay, well, I trust in your opinion. Let's bring him on board. And he was a massive success. Massive success. He was with us for a long period of time. He only left because he moved to Canada with his sister. He would, he's always welcome back in our business. I'd take him back in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I think you've told me about him last year. So obviously that was a good candidate.
Yeah.
So at what were the initial responsibilities you were expecting, or yeah, essentially what was he doing to help create value for you and for the business?
So he was obviously doing credit history checks. He was doing all our submissions. He started taking care of settlements. He started. So we just obviously grew him into the role. He was new to industry back then, so it took time to grow him into it. But he was, yeah, it. There's a lot of training involved. They would provide some training for him. I would provide some best paid training specific to our processes.
Yep.
He'd be giving me feedback on what was working, or I'd see something, I'd see him make a mistake. So every time something went wrong, there was essentially three things. It was either he's made the mistake, which could be it's an attention to detail thing, or it's a systems or processes thing, or I haven't given him the right information, or the lender's made a mistake. So we would unpick and we would case study one touch file, like a file that wasn't one touch. It should have been one touch. Why did this happen? Oh, because he didn't do this. Okay. Well, I'll train him in that. Or because I didn't do something, or I'll build some systems in around that. So this is how we were able to just evolve our systems to fit in with what he needed to be the best at his job.
Nicely said, though I think it also sounds like from what you just mentioned, he was a bit of an all-rounder because you mentioned that he was doing credit stuff, he was doing lodgements, and then he was doing settlements. So that's a fairly broad range of different responsibilities. Was there one area where he was sitting more so in, or was he doing essentially once you handed over a file, he was running with it from, say, application through to settlement?
Yeah, look, so he wasn't, we didn't upskill him and like to a massively high level. He wasn't all rounder, but back then I would have been well, maybe 3 mil a month we would have been doing back then. So
Okay.
it wasn't now when you look at the business, like the business will do in like a vanity metric, but we'll submit 30 to 40 mil a month, right? So we can't have all rounders, right? We've got a settlement agent, we've got a submission and quality control officer, we've got para brokers. Like, so they've all been segmented now purely because of the volume that we write. But
Yep.
back then at 3 mil a month, he could do everything. So yeah, to your point, yeah, he understood, but he wasn't doing servicings, he wasn't doing lender selections, he wasn't dealing with BDMs. It was very clear on what his roles were, and
Right.
he could literally I could not speak to him for the whole day, and I know that he's working in and he's getting through that work because of our task management.
Okay, so then knowing that he was in your business, did your second VA come on board whilst he was there, or did they come on board after he moved to Canada?
No, no. So I think when he left, I think we had four. Yeah, four. So it was really good because he set the standard. He was the standard. He would be considered what we call a blue blood. Like Bertus is blue. He loved the brand. He went over and above. So he set this really high standard for everyone that was coming in. And he
Yes.
was very accommodating and training everybody. And he was very difficult to get feedback out of, but I'd have to literally drag it out of him to actually, I'm saying to him, tell me what you need to do your job better. And trying to bring him along for the ride for what we're building. And now we've built that over time, as you guys at Hide Offshore, you understand it's oh yeah, everything's great, Trav. Everything's perfect. And I'm like, everything's not perfect. I can't fix it unless you tell me what you need me to fix, and I want to go fix stuff. I want to make your life easier. So
So do you think, just in relation to what you said then, that's because his mindset was maybe you're the boss, he's a subordinate, and that he may not have felt comfortable in offering feedback around things that could have been done to improve for fear of, maybe his own role or for fear of upsetting you, something along those lines, as distinct from, frankly, like other people that might have no problems whatsoever being really clear and direct in terms of their observations. Is
yeah,
it?
100%. 100%. I'm not going to hide behind. I'm a big personality. I'm loud. I talk quick. That stuff can be quite intimidating for offshore staff. At the time, we had an onshore office manager.
Yeah.
Who was very gentle, and she had probably a softer. So I sort of championed her. She
Yeah.
was working in systems and processes, so I was able to build the confidence with the team to have those conversations with us through her at the time.
Okay.
But now. So I stole this from Darren Little. Darren Little's got an offshore team of what, 180. He doesn't call them offshore, he calls them operations. They're the engine room of Smart Move. So it's just changing the language around it and outlining to the team that you're the operations. You're not offshore. You're not there to just be sat in the corner and do what you're told. You're the engine room of the business. You're the ones that are getting the deals into the system. You're the ones that are progressing the deal from submission to settlement. Like you guys are a critical part. You're a valued part of this business. And once they start feeling more valued and that they see they see how valuable they are to me and to my business, they're more inclined to take an active role and take ownership of the position that I'm giving them.
So a couple of comments here. Firstly, I'm of the opinion to a great degree it's the onshore or offshore is somewhat agnostic or irrelevant. It's more about how they're brought into the business and treated as an equal or a peer or a colleague or a team member. and that they're supporting the trajectory or the proposition or the culture of the business, and obviously performing their role well and engaging with others. And frankly, if they're not doing that, and it doesn't really matter where they're located. Now, the other thing is in terms of influencing some of their behavior, was there any point when you sort of wore your t-shirt and rolled up your sleeves? Because just in case the audience hasn't already seen, you've got some pretty big biceps. So I'm just wondering if that was a part of like an intimidation strategy on your part.
Trying to do the opposite, to be honest. I don't want to intimidate them. I probably do the opposite, right? So I try and encourage them to take the piss out of me. I want them I want them to get together and talk about my quirks and like some of them now like they're happy to have a go at me, like to jokingly, and it's like it's taken time. It's like dragging it out of them, and it's yeah, like so it's trying to build that rapport and build their confidence up. So yeah, it's probably the opposite. I yeah, especially my background in the police too. I know that my language modeling can become quite confrontational without me realizing. It's probably like my natural way that I would like to manage is because I grew up playing footy is the footy sheds. Like grab you by the collar, James, go nose to nose, going, let's effing go, let's do this together. That's how I would like to manage. But I can't like not with my onshore guys, not definitely not with my offshore guys. So I had to teach myself, and as I said, I had to put people in to sort of take that role at the beginning
Sure.
to sort of push the team to a point that they were sort of feel more comfortable with me.
Yep.
It's still something we work on today. We just had our offshore retreat in Cebu, and it made a massive difference. One of my guys has been with me for a year, really good guy, performing really well, super quiet, never says boo. I didn't realize, like, even like my wife and with her, she's like, he's really funny, he's really witty, and I'm like, I didn't know that because he never said boo. Like, he does what he's told. He's very polite. Been a great employee for us, but he's very funny guy that I never realized until I actually got to sit down and sit
Got
across the
the
table and be with him.
got the opportunity to experience it face to face. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Incidentally, it sounds like that trip was worthwhile, and for what it's worth, of every person I've met or broker I've either worked with or spoken to that's gone and met their team offshore, and on the occasion where the brokers brought their offshore team onshore, it sounds like that's only consolidated or enhanced relationships with the team.
Yeah, we sold the idea from another business that's got a offshore team of about 20 or 25. They do an annual one. This was our first one, and we will do an annual trip. We will do an annual trip moving forward
Great.
because career planning ma had massive impact on the culture to the business.
Yep.
Some of my offshore team had never met each other. Like
Oh, really? Okay.
yeah, so like they're on different. Well, news to me, there's 7,100 islands in the Philippines. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I went to Cebu, right?
Yeah.
So all these guys are on different islands, and they were more open. They were more open around having conversations. So, and they gave me there were some really strong realizations that I come to when I went over there and just and speaking with them. Probably my biggest takeaway from that trip, when I look at like how to improve my performance, was where I seem to have got recruitment right offshore was when I hired on reputation, not on skills. So I'm literally so we've got a system in place.
Reputation or attitude, or as in, do you mean reputation of the person,
Yeah.
which, or do
Yeah.
you
So
mean,
obviously we look at attitude and we look at aptitude when we're interviewing them.
yeah,
What we're finding is so probably who I would consider to be my most like in our business currently, our most successful, our most skilled offshore employee. She came to us. Her sister was working for us at the time, and we do this. So we offer an incentive, $500 cash if you are able to introduce somebody to the business that we hire and they stay for 6 months. They know there's a pretty high standard to meet
yeah,
when invert us. So they might only last 3 months, and we'll cut them.
yeah,
And they know that if they bring them in the business and they don't cut it, that it's going to impact on them because they got to pick up the slack.
yes,
So one of the girls was working for me at the time. She said, "Oh, I think we should hire my sister. She's got a little bit of experience, but she's way smarter than me, and I think she's got the ability to be really, really good." So we went through the interview process and we hired her, and she's probably been our most successful offshore hire to date. Uh, and now what we're doing is we're now hiring when I've now because I've got obviously a bigger team over there. They're actively speaking to people they've worked with in the past, and they're going, Trav, I really think you should hire this person. This is why. This is their strengths. This is their weaknesses. This is where I think we can place them in the business. And that we're having these conversations. The two recruits that we just hired last month, both referrals from within our team.
Great. That's awesome. Good on you. I love it. It's simple and effective. So, as your team's evolved, how did you start to distinguish in terms of their responsibilities and take them from potentially generalists to, if I've understood this right, then some of them have got more specific roles?
Yeah, so we've got a couple. So we've got a settlement officer. When we say a submission officer, they all take care of the submissions, but we've got a particular person in the business that takes care of submission quality control. So he's looking across because we've got multiple brokers now.
Yeah.
With CBA, these files should have been one touch. Why weren't they one touch? Was it a broker problem? Was it a submission problem? Was it a process problem, or was it an assessor problem? Oh,
So, specific to that, if I could clarify, that means that after the file's been lodged, they're reviewing the quality to determine how could this be improved so that we achieve more streamlined or cut through processes or results next time. So
100%.
that's going to be a continuous ongoing thing as part of that role and responsibility, essentially infinitum, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
We
cool.
work extremely hard on our submission quality, and it's a lag indicator, right? Because like we brought someone into the business last year onshore, it didn't work out, and the volumes were extremely high for me at the time, so it wasn't a focus of mine. It wasn't until too late that I realized the submission quality dropped off. All the systems and processes and frameworks were there for this person to succeed, and they'd
Yeah.
been trained, but they just weren't implementing them, and I wasn't on top of it
And it
until
wasn't a focus area. Yeah.
it's too late. And I'm seeing this, I'm like ringing my BDMs going, they're like, Trav, what's going on? Your submission quality is not nowhere near where it was 6 months ago. Oh, like light bulb moment. Oh, I know what it is. Can't fix this. It's, I mean, so we made changes. And
So
now our submission quality is returned back to where it was previously.
so let's go through them again. Just take me through them at a high level and simply, what are your team members?
So we've got a submissions and quality control officer. We've got a settlements officer. Then we've got one, two, three para brokers. And then we've got somebody new that starts on Monday, which they will fall in under the submissions officer. So they'll be working in submissions, but every single person in the team does submissions. But then they've obviously got their other roles which they take care of.
Okay. And how many of those power brokers are dedicated for you versus your team?
So two of them are dedicated to me, one of them is dedicated to another broker. So what it's what we offer as Vertus, if I think the number's 70 mil. Once they get past 70 mil, we will plug in a full-time power broker into their business to accelerate them from 70 to 100 at our expense. But prior to that, they get access to our team, and if they want a power broker, they've got to cover that expense themselves.
Okay. And have you considered having an EA or a PA, as in someone that's runs your diary or runs your phone for you to again free up capacity and opportunity and focus, or is that not necessarily something you'd consider doing?
We're not look at this stage. I'm pretty committed to moving forward with the offshore because we've had a
Uh,
lot.
I'm referring to an offshore executive assistant or an offshore personal assistant.
The way that our systems and processes are built, look, there's not really that much management. Yeah, my phone will constantly ring, right? And I've got diverts set up so the team can take them. For the
Okay.
power brokers, we're setting up processes where those phone calls from the banks are directed directly to them, not to me.
Yep.
But for my calendar, it's sort of, yeah, I don't, at this point, I don't need it.
Yep.
But the power brokers, my two power brokers that I've got are taking on more and more responsibility. So what we are talking about doing is we're talking about starting a graduate program out of the Philippines. So start as a power broker. If you can run a deal, so I'll do the discovery call and the strategy meeting. If a power broker can run the equivalent of 50 mil a year, this is servicing, lender selection, MIRs, dealing with issues around settlements, and actually being able to scramble and get these things done. If they can actively do those things, we will now we will now start looking at immigrating them to Australia. And when they come to Australia, they'll become a PAYG broker under the Virtus brand on a sponsorship visa. And and then they've got the opportunity to obviously stay as a PAYG broker, or at some point in the future, if they can generate enough volume for themselves, they can move across into the high performance contractor model that we've got. So this is essentially this is very, very early days, mind you. So it's just it's we haven't formalized it yet. But the idea in place is to take a para broker that's earning 25 grand a year in the Philippines, and over the next 10 years, take them from 25 grand a year to a fully fledged contractor broker under the high performance model, earning 250 grand a year.
So
So
it's the first time they're going to hear about this on this podcast, or are they they're going to hear about it before before
one of them
it's
knows
out?
about it. One of them, if they listen to it, one of them knows about it. But yeah, but it's but yeah, this is something that will. But I'm setting the bar extremely high. Like this isn't Trav, I've been here a year. I now want to go in the graduate program. No, like I'm sitting there, I'm setting these challenges. Like it's a we know that if
As it should be the case, mate. I mean, if you're going to invest the energy, the time, the money to bring them across, it's not an insignificant commitment on your part, and not dissimilar to anybody else that's recruited into a business. It needs to be given the appropriate consideration, and ideally that they commit to it from a behavioural point of view, which in turn will influence the results I want to get. Right? I would have thought that'd be fairly apparent, as opposed to thinking it's just a given, or yeah, something is just what's the right word that they're entitled to.
Yeah, yeah, and it's laying the challenge down for them. And look, my general feeling, and this is what I'm hearing, and like technology is moving at such a fast pace in our industry now that it's making support staff almost obsolete to a certain extent. So if you're a high volume business and you start implementing these big pieces of tech, now you've got a capacity, you've got so much capacity that you've either got to offload staff, and I don't want to do that. I want to, like, my staff are here. This isn't a job for them. This is a career for them. So what I'm trying to do is upskill them. So as the tech advances, like we've got direct lodgement with Brokerage now. So what used to be what an hour to submit a deal is now 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm giving this all this time, right? So once we start implementing this tech, I don't want to turn around to my team and go, "Hey guys, bought this tech. It's cheaper than you. Thanks for your time. Thanks for the 5 years that you put into Vertus, but there's no position here for you." What I'm doing is I'm training them now, going, "Okay, I don't need to do this anymore, but you're trained in this." So we're repurposing our staff and upskilling our staff so that they're now more valuable to the business. And I'm pretty clear with them. I communicate to them, if you can show me how you can bring more value to the business, I will remunerate you for it.
So I think there's a couple of comments I want to make here, because I really love that you're choosing to do this. I also think it's important for people that are in that infancy and don't yet have a team member offshore, and that's what they're considering, is that may not be their aspiration, and they don't necessarily need to have the level of foresight that you've now got, because you didn't arrive at that on day one when you were hiring your first team member. Clearly, is you were hiring a team member for a function at that point in time, and it was to probably get some work off your desk and free up capacity. And I think that's okay in terms of, if that's the initial purpose or intent, is to do exactly the same thing. And frankly, I'm pretty sure, Trav, most people won't necessarily want to pursue what you've already set up, or I'm sorry, what you're building. But if and for the purposes of this episode, which is about recruiting offshore, if the intent is initially to create more opportunity or free up capacity, or provide the means by which to grow volumes in the business, is to then hire your first offshore team member, I think that's still a reasonable reason to get started, even if they don't have the aspiration of bringing that person onshore to Australia at some point down the road. Um, I've got another thought here, which is that I think it's probably helpful that before they go and pull the trigger on a supplier, in terms of going through a recruitment agency or whichever the case is, that they at least put pen to paper and write down what are some key tasks or actions or responsibilities you'd like that person to do, or in some cases, what are things that you're not enjoying doing that someone else could help you with. Now, of course, you can't necessarily hand over certain things that the broker is compliant to do, but I do think that it helps to have some level of clarity around where you want to allocate your time and what you could potentially delegate or empower someone else to do. So it makes it easier for you to work with them and support them or train them or guide them so that they can perform well, do their job well, which in turn means that as a team, you're hopefully going to deliver a better service than what a broker might do individually. And sorry, Trevor, I'm on a roll here. I'll just say this as well. Is that with that last piece around delivering a better service, I think that's important for some people to understand that invariably, if sometimes you're quote unquote busy, which means that files are getting neglected because something's taking precedent or priority, when you've got the ability for your team to follow up on things that you may not have got around to as quickly, well, it's almost certainly going to be the case that conversions will increase because you'll get back to people quicker. Service levels for clients will actually increase, not decrease, typically, and that may not happen immediately if you've got a green or new to industry person that requires some training, but if you've got someone that can slot in, then the upside is almost certainly better than the downside. And the primary downside is investing the money to get the time back.
Yeah, you make a couple of key points there that I'll probably talk to a little bit. What was the first one? So around writing
Defining,
down,
yeah, roles and
writing down your call. Yeah.
responsibilities.
So
Yeah.
I was probably very slow to the uptake on that, to my own detriment. Even now, I'm starting to look because obviously I'm upskilling my team and I'm doing things and I'm like, why am I doing this? They already know how to do it, or I can train them to do it. And now what we're doing is I'm actually I'm actually training them to start taking. You want to earn more? Take things off my work list. Find things that I'm doing. Ask me to teach you to do them. And then when you know how to do them, say, Trav, you said if I was more valuable to the business, you'll pay me more. Or you are more valuable. Yeah, let's talk about a pay rise. So they're actually doing these sorts of things now where because sometimes you're right, like I would have been able to advance this process far quicker if I did what you said and wrote down. Because I wasn't. And it just took me longer to uptake. That's probably one of the key things that, yeah, it's a really good point you make there. One of the other big successes that we had around training is so we use Loom. We've got over 350, we've got a library of over 350 videos now.
Just
Some of
for
them
people
probably,
that want to check that out, that's loom.com, LOOM for Mary.com. Sorry, Jeff.
so that's a platform where you can literally jump in and screen record and talk through the screen. I use it for a range of different things, but of that 350, there's probably 150 to 200 of them is actually a Loom library specific to my operations team. So
Yep.
what we do is I've trained my team now to go, hey Trav, I don't know how to order a CBA val. I've looked in the Loom library. There's nothing in there for this. Okay, perfect. Let's do it right now. Hit Loom, hit record. Hey James, log into this portal. I want you to click here. I want you to click there. I want you to make sure this box is ticked.
Yep.
And then we record that and it goes in the library. If it's task specific to Broker Engine, I'll take that Loom link and I link it into the task. So
Yep.
a brand new operations offshore employee that comes in and gets tasked on day one. The task says step one, do this, step two, step three, step four. If you don't understand, watch the video. And the video is in the link, they don't have to go find it. So again, took a long time to build this out, but what it's been able to do is it's been able to accelerate their onboarding process. I'm not training people constantly on how to do a pricing or how to order evaluation or how to interpret a credit history report. All that there is all recorded and it's just there for their access. And they really like it because, like you said, offshore a bit apprehensive. I don't want to go to ask Trav this question. Oh, I know he explained it to me last week, but I didn't quite get it. If I go back and ask him again now, he's probably going to get fed up with me. I'm not, but that's what they think, right? So, I'll just go into the library, I'll find it.
And I think that's a great way to go too, is that they say it's like essentially coming to you to say, I've attempted to solve this problem and I haven't yet been able to. So now I'm looking for some guidance, as opposed to saying, well, I don't know what to do. So let me just abdicate my thinking to you, which is a bit different. So I think that's a great way to condition them or guide them or support them in terms of trying to self-correct or problem solve before they're coming to seek your guidance or feedback as well. Hey,
When
I'm just curious. Sorry, I'm not curious. I'm conscious that instead of making this episode bigger than Ben Hill, we might wrap it up there. If you've got one parting thought to put you on the spot in terms of how brokers can make the best out of the integration with a team member, in this case, offshore, what's a final thought?
So my biggest advice to somebody bringing on their first offshore is make sure that you have the systems and processes to facilitate them to do the jobs. The systems and processes is essentially the tools that you're putting in their hands to do the job. If those tools aren't sufficient to do the job, you can't take issue with them because the job's not done correctly. That's the biggest problem I see why offshoring doesn't work. So don't rush out and I'm not telling you to go out and spend 1,000 hours building out your systems and processes. Just put some focus into building it right for them. And it might not be perfect, but then your focus is in the first 3 months, they're learning as well as you're learning. So you're learning from them what the process is, what they need to do the job properly, and you're giving them what they need. So that's probably the big one, and treating them as a valued member of the team because they are. And the more they appreciate this, the more they'll come out of their shell, the more confident they become in their abilities, and the more likely you are to retain them.
Agreed. Yeah, and like any valued staff member, is they're important and they contribute and they make a difference, and hopefully you get to enjoy their company and the relationship that you're building with them as well. So nicely said. Audience, we thank you very much for hanging out with us today and listening to this episode. We hope you find it useful and valuable and supports you in terms of your journey, whether you're bringing on your first team member, your fifth, or your 10th or more. And here's to your continued and ongoing success. We'll be back in episode number 7 with some new insights and opinions to share when we get that. So thanks so much, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.
Thanks, guys.